So we'll just continue. So what is the role of the Himalayas? The Himalayas act as a blockage. So when the cold winds blowing from the Central Asia are trying to escape our Indian subcontinent, what do? The Himalayas block all these cold winds from entering our Indian subcontinent. So that is why the northern plains don't freeze in winter. What is the second role played by the Himalayas? When the southwest monsoon winds, as they're approaching further up from Arabian Sea, even from Bay of Bengal, as they go further up, the Himalayas act as a blockage. So they don't allow the monsoon winds to drop their moisture somewhere else. Rather, they allow these two winds to drop all the moisture to this part of the Indian subcontinent. So that is the role played by the Himalayas. And the last mountain is the Aravalli. Here, if you look into your textbook, Aravalli range plays a very important role. Why? What is the role of the Aravalli? You always get a question on Aravalli. Aravalli, how does this mountain block the southwest monsoon? So rather than blocking, because Aravalli lies parallel, this is a very important word, parallel to the direction of the prevailing, meaning a southwest monsoon. So this is the Aravalli range, and this is the southwest. So they are parallel to each other. So what happens? This monsoon winds, rather than entering Aravalli, they take a different route. That is why this part of Aravalli receives very little rainfall, and there's Thar Desert, which is a desert because very little rainfall is received in this area because Aravalli is parallel to the direction of monsoon winds. So many times you get questions with respect to Aravalli, questions like, you may jot down questions like Rajasthan receives very little rainfall, Western Rajasthan receives very little rainfall, or it could be the rainfall in Jaisalmer hardly exceeds 25 centimeter. Thar is a desert. So for all these four questions, your answer would remain the same because Aravalli lies parallel to the direction of prevailing monsoon. So that is about the role of the mountain ranges. We started by talking about the Himalayas, the Western Ghats, the Purvanchal, and the Aravalli. Now moving to the third factor affecting the climate of India, that's the maritime and continental location. Now what is maritime and continental location? We've already learned this before. Maritime meaning places which are close to the sea are always known by the name maritime, and continental meaning places which are far from the sea. So continental is far from the sea, maritime is close to the sea. Now what does this mean? Now whenever a place is close to the sea, always remember places which are away from the sea, which is the interior, have continental or extreme type of climate. So places which are far from the sea will always have continental extreme type of climate, whereas places which are close to the sea will always have a moderate. M for moderate, M for maritime, okay, M for marine. So try to connect these three words. So that is the difference between places having maritime climate and continental. Continental climate are always experienced by places which are far from the sea, like Delhi, UP, Lucknow. So these are places which are far from the sea, MP, Chhattisgarh. These are places which are far from the sea, and you tend to experience continental type of climate, whereas places which are close to the sea like Puducherry, Goa, Mumbai, this will always experience a maritime climate. Moving to the next factor, point number 4, altitude. Now altitude, you must remember, means the height of a place. So questions related to hill stations, your answer would always be something to do with altitude. Now what is altitude? Altitude is the height of a place. So always remember, higher we climb up, so as we increase climbing up, higher we climb, what happens to temperature? Temperature drops down. And this phenomena is known as a normal lapse rate. Normal lapse rate explains that as we climb up by 165 meters, our temperature drops by 1 degree Celsius. So that is what is called normal lapse rate. So if you get a question on why is Shimla cooler than Delhi, Darjeeling cooler than Delhi. So if you get questions like this, always try to connect to the altitude, because places which are always at a higher altitude will always have a lower temperature than places which are at a lower altitude. So that is about altitude and what is normal lapse rate. Now here I'll quickly explain the maritime thing. Now all the places, try to remember places which are close to the coast. These are your water bodies. Your Arabian Sea is here, your Indian Ocean, your Bay of Bengal. So all the places which are close to the water bodies, always try to remember they will always experience what kind of climate? They'll always have a, what kind of climate will they have? Moderate. Moderate, meaning they're neither too hot nor too cold. The other word is maritime. So you have to make yourself comfortable with the two words maritime and moderate. Similarly, places which are far from the sea, like this area which are far from the sea, places which are far from the sea, the distance from the, they'll always have what kind of climate? The climate of this will be continental, or the other word is extreme, meaning two opposite ends, very hot, very cold. So that is about your distance from the sea. Now fifth factor is, which we've already done in the introduction, this is the fifth factor, location and latitudinal extent. Here you must know that our latitude is very vast. That is why the northern part of India receives a temperate climate, the southern part receives a tropical climate. So that is what this point is all about. Now I'll quickly move on to point number 6, tropical cyclone and western disturbances. Now this is the sixth factor affecting the climate of our country, tropical cyclone and western disturbances. Now let us quickly have a look at this. Now what are tropical cyclones? Tropical cyclones are active in the months of October, November. During the month of October and November, during the retreating monsoon, when the monsoon is leaving our country and going back, these cyclones originate in the Bay of Bengal, and it brings widespread rain and destruction of life and property along the eastern coast. So that is the role of tropical cyclones. So they develop, damage a lot. So that is the role played by the tropical cyclone. So just for your reference, please know what a tropical cyclone is. Not underlined, please underline. Tropical cyclone, please mark. Tropical cyclone origin Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal, affect the major part of the peninsular India. So most of the peninsular India, that is the southern India, gets affected. The eastern coast gets affected because of this tropical cyclone. Now next thing which is very important for you to know is the second, that's a temperate cyclone or western disturbances. Many times you get question on what are western disturbances, where do they originate, one benefit of western disturbance. So let us try to understand what are western. If you have a look at the picture here, now western disturbances actually originate in the Mediterranean Sea. So they develop over Mediterranean Sea, and because of the high velocity wind, or called the jet stream, they attract these western disturbances and allow them to enter our country. So this is how the western disturbances enters our country, affecting mostly the northern part of our country. So let's try to understand what are western disturbances. Our westerly depression, please underline, which originate in the Mediterranean Sea and blow eastwards under the influence of jet stream. So jet stream is a very important wind because they are very high velocity wind. They pull the westerns and allow them to enter a country. Now where do they affect? They affect the winter condition over most of the northern plains. Please understand, it's mostly the northern plains that gets affected because of western. So which are the states? At least try to remember two states, Punjab, Haryana, or western UP. And what do? Western disturbances, they bring slight rainfall of about 10 centimeter, which is very good for the better yield of wheat. So please understand, one benefit of western disturbances is that it brings light rainfall and is good for the favorable growth of wheat. Two states, Punjab, Haryana, try to remember where do they origin? Mediterranean Sea, jet streams attract them and they enter a country. So if you get a question on name the wind that brings winter rainfall in the northern part of the country, it has to be western disturbances. And if you remember when we were learning about northeast monsoon brings rainfall to the southern coast of India, whereas western disturbances brings rainfall to the northern part of India during winter. So please do not get confused with the two. So that is about western disturbances. Moving to the seventh point. Upper air circulation. Now, what is upper air circulation? We're going to learn about jet streams here now. What is the role played by the jet streams? Now, jet streams are very important. Like I told you, you must know what are jet streams. Jet streams are the narrow band of strong current, the very strong air current in the upper layer. The speed is almost 100 to 150 km per hour, and they're responsible for bringing westerly disturbances from the Mediterranean to the Indian subcontinent. There are two west, one is in the westerly direction and one is in the easterly. All you have to remember is what are jet streams and what are they responsible for bringing. What is the role played by jet streams? They attract the western disturbances over the Mediterranean Sea, and that is how they allow them to enter our country. The next type of circulation, I would say rather, the warm ocean current is the El Nino. El Nino is a warm ocean current, and we've learned about what is a warm ocean current, cold ocean current in class 9. Now, warm ocean current meaning it tends to increase the temperature of a place, of an area. Now, because when these warm ocean currents, what do? How are they responsible? The warm ocean current El Nino is responsible for increasing the surface temperature of water. They increase the surface temperature of water and influences the climate all over the world. Now let us try to understand how does El Nino affect the climate of a country. Now El Nino, what do? Because it's a warm current, it results in weak monsoon. Because it is very warm, so monsoon becomes weak, causing a lot of drought, dryness, failure of the crops, and reduces the southwest monsoon effect. Because it's a warm wind, so it tends to alter everything, bring in change, make the condition very dry, destroy the moisture trapped by the southwest monsoon, causing drought and crop failure. So that is the role played by El Nino. Moving to the next, that is the cold current, La Nino. So now La Nino is just the opposite of El Nino, and it is shown that it is beneficial to India as it brings heavy showers. Now, since this is a cold current and it does not, it does not help in raising the temperature of the water, so it brings favorable conditions for the monsoon to approach our country. So that is the cold ocean current and the warm ocean current, El Nino and La Nino. Now, the last factor that affects the climate of a country is your land and sea breeze. Point number 8. Here is a table that helps us to differentiate between what is land and sea breeze and what is the difference between monsoon. Please try to understand they are not the same. Now, to explain what is land and sea breeze, I will go to the next slide, use the diagram to explain. Now, if you look here, the first picture is your sea breeze and the second is of land breeze. Now, before we proceed further, just try to understand two things here. One, always remember temperature and pressure have an inverse relationship, meaning and the temperature increases, pressure becomes low. So that is the relationship shared by temperature and pressure. Okay, so this you have to keep in mind. Higher the temperature, pressure decreases. And the second thing that you have to understand is that land and water, they have a different heating capacity, meaning they take different amount of time to heat, at the same time different amount of time to lose the heat. Now, which one do you think heats up quickly? It's of course land, because it is compact, so they always heats quickly. Whereas water is transparent, so it is little slow in heating, so it heats up slowly. The second thing, since the land is compact, and try to imagine desert area, during the daytime it becomes very hot and at night it's cold because it's covered with land, and land they heat up really quickly. At the same time they release heat also quickly. So they heat up quickly, at the same time they release the heat also quickly. Whereas water, just the opposite, heating slowly, at the same time they release heat slowly. That is the difference between the heating capacity of land and water. Now let us try to understand what is land and what is sea breeze. Let's start with sea breeze. Imagine it's daytime. Sea breeze, it's daytime. So imagine it is daytime. The sun rays approaching the land. So land will of course heat quickly. So the temperature is high here. What will happen to pressure? Pressure becomes low. Similarly, in the sea, since water will take a lot of time to heat, so temperature is still low, pressure will be high. And wind always moves from, the second thing I forgot to mention, wind always blows from high pressure to low pressure. Now going back to sea breeze, because here in land temperature is high, pressure is low, whereas here in sea the water is still not heated up, so temperature is still low, whereas pressure is high. So of course wind moves from high pressure to low pressure because the pressure is high here, so wind will move from here to here, that is from sea to land. So when the wind moves from sea to land, that is the phenomena we call it sea breeze. So this is a process of how land and sea heats up and how pressure moves from wind blows from high pressure to low pressure. So that is your sea breeze. Now moving to the next, land breeze. Imagine it's nighttime. It's nighttime. Now what is happening here? What is happening here? Because it's nighttime, what is happening here? Like we learned that water releases heat slowly. So still the temperature is high in water because they are slow in releasing the heat. So because the temperature is still high because water releases heat slowly, whereas land temperature is low because they are very quick to release the heat. So when the temperature is higher, pressure will of course be low because they have opposite relationship. Whereas here temperature is low, so pressure will be high. And we always know wind always moves from high pressure to low pressure. This is high pressure, so when the wind moves from land to sea, that is what is known as land breeze. So these are your two difference between what is land and sea breeze. All you have to remember is three things. One is the relationship between temperature and pressure. Second, you must know that wind always moves from high pressure to low pressure. And the third point is the heating capacity. Always remember land heats quickly, at the same time they release, meaning they lose their heat quickly, whereas water heats up slowly, at the same time they release heat slowly. So you must remember this. Now in the next slide I have questions for you. Please try to go through the questions, try to understand what the question demands, and you're supposed to type the answer and send it via email. So please try to understand the question. You can again watch the video to understand, to revisit the chapters covered. Your next video will be on the seasons of India. So I hope you've understood. If you have any concerns, questions, please feel free to write or share.